What's going on YouTube? My name is Ryan. Welcome back to Stick and Pucksters YouTube channel. And today we're going to go through my predictions, analysis for the Atlantic Division this year and the upcoming NHL season. We're just going to go through what I think the standings are going to be for each division, how the team is better from last year, where they will fall into everything, key additions and departures for that team, as well as a couple predictions thrown for players along the way. And we're going to start off with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, the Atlantic Division's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning and everyone else. The Tampa Bay Lightning will be first in division this year again. But ultimately, it doesn't come down to what they do in the regular season. They can finish in the wild card spot for all I care, and for all they care, because they're going to be haunted the entire season about last year's playoff loss and their sweep against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're without a doubt the deepest team in the NHL. Forwards, defensive. They have the best goaltender in the world right now. Their coaching is top notch. Everything about this team screams Stanley Cup champion. And for me, they'll finally do it this year. I'm going to start my first video off for division analysis. My first team that I'm talking about is my cup prediction for 2020. They weren't last year, and they ended up breaking wins or tying wins records. They were way too good in the regular season. I don't know if they ended up too cocky or had a big head about themselves about the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll sweep all over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Got ahead of themselves, and after a 3-0 lead blown in the first game, they just crumbled for the rest of the series. And I think that's going to hang over this team for the entire season. And I think it's going to define them as a team, and I think they're going to find a way to rally around that. And who knows, maybe win a cup. Something I am curious about, and this will be an underlying thing in all of these division videos, where is Braden Point, or when is he going to sign, and for how much? Right now, according to Cap Friendly, Tampa Bay Lightning have $8.47 million in cap space. That's not enough to sign Braden Point. Braden Point is going to probably fall into the 9 to 10 range, you'd think. They can probably do some cap wiggling for like the amount of roster spots they have, but it's going to be really tight to sign Braden Point going into the year. They might have to we might see some trades but for a couple teams, not just the Tampa Bay Lightning, going up to the season to try to just squeeze into that salary cap. The Tampa Bay Lightning have always been a team that finds guys out of nowhere. Who here, and comment down below if you knew this, knew who Yanni Gourde was before last season or the season before that? He's a relatively unknown guy, and they find ways to bring guys like that up. Tyler Johnson was that kind of player. Andre Palat was that kind of player. Even Kucherov, when he came up, no one really is, he's a skilled Russian. He ends up winning the scoring race this year. Tampa Bay finds so many players that just come in and perform well in their system, and I'm curious if they're going to do it again. One guy I'm curious is going to maybe come up to the roster this year. You might recognize his name, is Taylor Radish. And Taylor Radish had 46 points in 70 games in the Syracuse Crunch in the AHL last year. Is it the time now to bring him up with Point's contract being up and them needing some depth on forward? Every team needs depth on forward, and he might be that guy either next year or the year after or next year to be that Yanni Gourde out of nowhere player that we don't see coming and puts up 50 points. Just to go over some key arrivals and departures this year too. Rivals being Kevin Shattenkirk, Curtis McElhinney, Patrick Maroon, Luke Schenn, and Luke Witkowski so far. Departures being TJ Miller, Adam Ierney, Ryan Callahan, Anton Stralman, and Dan Girardi. Now, I think they've improved their defense, funny enough, even with Anton Stralman and Dan Girardi leaving. I think Luke Schenn is decent enough to be a bottom two guy on a team like Tampa Bay. Skating might be questionable, but I think he's a good enough guy to have down there. And Kevin Shattenkirk, look for Kevin Shattenkirk to have a bounce-back season. And I know that He's mainly a power play guy, and they don't lack right-handed shots on the power play. Victor Hedman is back there. Steven Stamkos, Kucherov are all right-handed, and he might be pushed to a second power play. But in a system like Tampa Bay's, where they're used to got more out of guys than they should, look for Kevin Shattenkirk to have a bounce-back season. Another thing I want to point out, I wonder if they're going to take a more reserved approach with Andrei Vasilevsky this year. Andrei Vasilevsky is one of the best goaltenders in the NHL, if not the best goalie, but he seemed tired down the stretch last year. And into the playoffs, he seemed a little hurt, little not Andrei Vasilevsky prime. And I wonder if that's because they're going to roll his games back to maybe 55, 60 games and play Curtis McElhinney a whole lot. Because Curtis McElhinney, in the eyes of a lot of people right now, is one of the better backups in the NHL. Why go out and get that premier backup goaltender if you're not going to use him? All in all, Tampa Bay, top of the division. Let's move on. They're amazing. If they don't make the playoffs, I would be shocked, beside myself. Okay. I'm a little biased. Because I'm a diehard Leaf fan, I have a really hard time thinking critically about this team, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And to be honest, I have a hard time thinking of being critical of the next team I'm going to talk about as well. The Leaf fan mindset in me wants to put the Leafs in a wild card spot this year because we've gone through a lot, all right? I don't believe that's going to be the case, though. I put Toronto as second in this division this year, ahead of the Boston Bruins and ahead of every other team, because I just think they've gotten better as a whole. However, everything I've said in this video so far is regarding RFAs. Mitch Marner is super critical to get done before training camp starts. If Mitch Marner doesn't get signed before training camp, we're going to have a lot of issues because money. Right now, if you go on Cap Friendly, they have $0 in cap space. I know we can put David Clarkson and Nathan Horton on LTIR for about $10 million. I don't know exactly what it is. It's about $10 million. But we still need to fit Mitch Marner in. And people have said, oh, he's 11, oh, he's 12, oh, he's 9. Wherever he falls in is going to be super critical how this team is built. Beside Marner, I think the defense has improved. We've essentially, and it's a good time to bring it up, key additions and departures. We brought in Tyson Barrie, Cody Ceci, and Ben Harper, and got out Ron Hainsey, Nikita Zaitsev, and Jake Gardiner. I think, as a whole, I think Barry's the best defenseman, on that list entirely. But I think net defensive skill, I think we've improved. But everything I've said for the Leafs, it all rides on Freddie Anderson. If Freddie Anderson is good, if Freddie Anderson is Vezina quality, we have a chance to not only be second in a playoff spot, but we have a chance, as in when I mean we, I mean the Leafs, not we. I'm not a Leaf. Toronto Maple Leafs have a chance to not only be the second place team in this division, but be a first place team in this division if our goaltender carries us. And I think that's true with almost any contending team in the league. Our forward group is still elite. Our depth has, I think, gotten better. There's a bunch of guys in training camp that are going to be competing for those last two spots. I think the lines are pretty set, 1, 2, and 3. And I think Jason Spezza will be our fourth line center, which means there's going to be 2 open spots on the wings and a couple on the bench, depending on how you shake it. I think Trevor Moore is going to take one of those spots because I think Babcock loves him. And then that extra spot is going to be between Shore, Wilson, Aubert, Patan, Gauthier, who's still a thing, Agostino, Mikheyev, I think, is going to be up there in the lineup, but he's vying for a spot. And that's not even including all the AHL guys that could potentially make a big jump this year. Guys like Mason Marchment, Adam Brooks maybe, but I doubt it. But we have some guys down there still. Oh, Jeremy Bracco, the guy who scored like 70, 80 points in the AHL last year. There's going to be some decent depth on this team forward-wise, I think, this year, which is a huge improvement on last year. But, as I said, I'm biased. Second in division, let's move on. So, the next one's the Boston Bruins. Because I'm a Leaf fan and I want to think it, I think the Boston Bruins are going to fall back, but just a little bit. They're still going to be third. I'm going to put this Boston Bruin team third in the division behind the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know, hold on a second. Their core is aging, and while guys like David Pastrnak and Jake DeBrusk, not Louis DeBrusk, are coming up behind him, and Charlie McAvoy, Bergeron, Krejci, Chara are all 34 plus years old, and how much longer can they do it? I think the Boston Bruins window is closing. It's not closed yet, but it's closing. And in the next 2 or 3 seasons, we're going to start seeing the Boston Bruins fighting to stay in the top 3 in their division and not coasting like they have the last few years, and will continue to do this there. Another thing I have to beef with the Boston Bruins on is Tuukka Rask and Jaroslav Halak going to continue their dominance like they did last year. They were really good. A little too good. A little over career average for me. And for Tuukka Rask being, when I say over career average, his regular season numbers weren't overly crazy. But his playoff numbers, he had a 202 goals against average and a 934 save percentage. Whoa. If the Boston Bruins had won the Stanley Cup, he'd have won the Conn Smythe. Can Jaroslav Halak, however, who played 40 games as a 34-year-old, put up a 922 save percentage like he did last year? He's definitely one of the better backup goalies in the entire NHL, and I think he still could do it, but there's still that, the reasonable doubt that he can't because of his age. Now, I know I'm bitter when discussing this team. I get it. I'm not blind to that. But I think they're going to be a little worse this year, but they're still going to be stupid good, if that makes any sense. As far as key additions and departures go, Brett Ritchie and Per Lindholm come in to Boston, while Marcus Johansson and Noel Acciari go out. I think Noel Acciari is a bigger loss than some people make out, because, especially in the playoffs against Toronto, that dude was good. And the departure of Noel Acciari, I don't want to make too much of a big deal on him. The bottom 6 guy could be filled by Brett Ritchie, who has had a decent career so far from Dallas coming in. Per Lindholm wasn't very good. I don't know if he'll even see much NHL time if he doesn't just get sent down, if he doesn't get released out of camp or something and he goes back to Sweden. Per Lindholm is like a bubble NHL player to me. Another thing on this team is David Backes. And David Backes, at the end of last year, kind of devolved into this bottom line fighting enforcer role, if that makes any sense, in 2019. He did that because his coach basically was like, this is the best way we can use you. His foot speed isn't there anymore. His skill set is declining. He's getting older. He's hurt a lot. David Backes might be on his way out of the NHL, and depending on how much cap they need to save with signing Charlie McAvoy, right now they have $7.2 million in cap space. I think that's going to be enough to sign Charlie McAvoy, but if they need to make some moves, David Backes is the one that is probably going to be traded at some point. And he does make $6 million, but it is only for 2 seasons. That's a lot of money for a bottom line guy. But it is not an immovable contract. All right, Boston, third in their division. Let's move on to the fourth, which will be my first wild card team this year. We're actually going to end the Atlantic Division preview right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please feel free to hit the like button down below for us. And if you want more breakdown preview prediction for this upcoming season on the rest of the Atlantic Division teams, as well as the rest of the NHL, feel free to click that subscribe button for us. It really helps out the channel. And come back for more videos. Thank you for watching Stickin' Pucksters. Later.